Hello and welcome to Black Renaissance. I'm Liam Maitland, filling in for your host, Christian Ayres. So, before we start, I want to invite you to pitch us ideas. If you see something you like, you'd like to comment on, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Black Renaissance KBCW Television. We have a marvellous show for you today. First up, we're going to speak with actor Carl Lumbly about his new play, Tree. We'll also have a conversation with Luella Hill Dudley, the founder of an organisation that empowers women through poetry and other performance art. And we'll talk to cellar owner Raymond Smith about his award-winning wine, which I love. And last but not least, we'll hear from author Jewel Taylor-Gibbs and take a look at her new book. But first, let's welcome Carl Lumbly, brand new play, Tree, right here in San Francisco. Tell me about the production firstly. I know Tree initially started out as a story about race and became something else.
Yes, it's written by a writer named Julie Hebert, and she found letters that her father had written to her mother when he was between the ages of 19 and 21, when he was stationed overseas in the armed services, and she was struck by the fact that she didn't quite recognize the man in the letters as the man who had grown into her father. She comes from, she grew up in the Jim Crow South as a white young woman, and she wanted to address that in some way, address the history of it. So she began to write a story about a family, a white father who impregnated a black woman and ended up not living with her. She raises her son apart, and then the half-sister discovers their existence and comes to find out about her roots and her connections.
Well, you mentioned roots, Tree, so I'm assuming it's got something, of course, to do with the family tree.
Absolutely.
What is behind the name exactly, Tree?
It has to do with the family tree, but it also has to do with, because they were a black and white couple at the time, they were in the 50s, they met outside of town, and they spent their time together, their romance, in a tree.
And, well, at that time, a tough time to have that kind of relationship.
And a time where there was a great deal of courage. People who were guided by their heart rather than by legislation or by the madness of the time, and found one another. And ultimately, it's a story of hope and connection. Tree.
Well, I want folks to go and see it. It's at the San Francisco Playhouse.
San Francisco Playhouse.
Runs through March 7th. But you are now a Bay Area resident and have been for many years, and we love that. We prize you as one of ours. And you have another production coming up with ACT.
Yes. In April, I'll be doing a production called Let There Be Love, written by writer Kwame Kwei-Armah. And this is about a gentleman who is given a caretaker by his family. His condition, he's not well, and he, like many people, seniors, he doesn't really see why he needs that. He starts out in an adversarial relationship with this young woman, and they grow to find a bond. And part of the connective tissue is the music of Nat King Cole, specifically the song Let There Be Love.
Oh my, the music of Nat. Your resume is impressive. You've done so much work over the years, but when you're making your decisions to take on a production, on stage, what's it about for you? And what does a script have to have for you to be a part of it?
I'm led by my heart, so I guess it's about love. I believe much more in connection than I do in separation. I think that separation is something artificial, and love is something natural, and it will always find its way like water. It will always carve a true path. So that's what guides me, anything that strikes my heart. I love writing and I love language, so I revere writers. But I also feel it's my responsibility to try and represent a world that I see or want to see. And I've been fortunate in that regard.
And of course, we're lucky enough to have seen you in many film and television productions. Any upcoming projects you want to share?
There is an A&E series that will be premiering March 9th called The Returned, and I have a role in that. I'm not really allowed to speak about it, but I would
worries.
urge. Yeah, it's a little spooky.
Carl, we appreciate your time. Carl Lumbly in Tree. Go see the production. For more information about Tree, you can go to sfplayhouse.org. Once again, that's sfplayhouse.org. We'll be back with more Black Renaissance right after this break. Thanks so much, Carl.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.